Hi everybody and welcome. Thanks for being here. Today is a very important day for me. I'm revealing my grand unified theory that I've been working on for over 25 years, my entire life, maybe 35 years. I started when I was 14 or 12 even. And I finally just solved it yesterday. Since then I've been working out all the kinks and figuring out exactly how it applies in the real world and looking at all the experimental evidence that lines up and making sure all the math works. And I think everything looks amazing, hunky-dory. So let me get right into it. The first thing I need to establish is the standard units that we're using. One of the problems that I think most people trying to unify the forces and fields have faced is that the units that we work in are not fundamental to the universe. So meters, although it's tied to the universe, I guess because it's a fraction of the speed of light, it is not represented as a fraction, as a normalized value of, say, like 0.5, 0.8, or just 1. So the first thing that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to treat all speeds as being 1, and that is the speed of light. That allows me to now measure distance differently. So what is velocity? We say that velocity is distance over time, but really it's just a rate of change. It is one number changing over time at a fixed pace. That is what velocity is. And we represent it, or it can be represented the way that I just described, if we take the speed to be always the same, always light speed, then we can say that velocity equals time squared. That allows us to make velocity relevant to time only itself and treat time as the only primitive. This allows us to remove many of the standard units from our measurements and keep a consistent mathematical framework that maps everything back to time. So let's begin. So if time squared equals velocity, then we can look at some of the real mathematical equations in this world. I guess that means I have to go. I'm running out of time. I guess we're gonna leave it here. Perhaps. So pause. So now what have we essentially done there? If we've just taken time squared and represented a distance, now we've represented distance, but we've only used time. Well, what we've done is we've created a field. That field is called space-time. It's a square field, and at the moment, it's completely uniform with no mechanics to bend it in any way. It's simply a field that's like X and Y. You've seen those fields in math class. Moving forward, we gain a force of acceleration when we go to the fourth power. So if we were to square velocity, that's how we get acceleration. That's a very common and well understood mathematical principle and a mathematical framework. We're going to follow that. So if we take velocity squared and we get acceleration, we can notice that that results in, literally it should be a number that is an acceleration, a pure number that is only related to time. We have that number. That's called the gravitational constant. Perfect. So that actually lines up. So now if we take that, that is now velocity squared and we have an acceleration. If we take that and we square it again, we get the quantum field and we get quantum effects. This gives rise to gluons because we are now in an 8-symmetry group. Some of this stuff is only knowledgeable people in physics are even going to understand what I'm talking about. And even I barely understand what I'm talking about. So we basically created a new dimension by recursing the old dimension, which is to square it. You know, we've created space-time by squaring time, and now we have something new called space-time. If we square that again, we get something new and different. And it's a pattern of if we continually square the previous result, we get something new and different that's actually meaningful and tied to physics. And what all this equation shows behind me is exactly that relationship. We can build all the primitive units, all the primitive forces, all the primitive fields through a recursion of time stacked on top of each other. And each new recursion creates a new primitive that we can also recurse through to create an entirely new set of fields and an entirely new set of particles that go along with those fields. This maps through from velocity into magnetics, into magnetic fields and EM waves, into electromotive force. Then we go from there into electromechanical and electrochemical forces. Basically, this framework allows you to start with a simple unit of only time and measure and go into any mathematical equation in any bridge of engineering. But if we look at the velocity primitive, we can now also create an acceleration primitive. That is a new mathematical, it's a new space-time, but it has more dimensions than previous. It is a square of what was existing before, so there's now 4 dimensions. We know that this is true when we go into the quantum dynamic world. We see things acting in a 4-dimensional space. This also gives rise to cross synergies between different branches. I have a tree built up in the corner here that will eventually contain all of science, so it's very incomplete at this moment, and when it is full, it will be an infinitely branching tree. But what I'm showing here is that there are tiers and recursive tiers that relate to each other. The electromagnetic field is actually a combination of 2 different force fields which combine to create the electromagnetic field. They exist both at the T4 intersection. One is the acceleration tier of the first time level, which is time squared, time to the 4, time to the 8, time to the 16. That's the first level. But you have a second level, which is velocity squared, a new primitive. And if you take velocity squared second level, that is equal to the 3rd level of the previous. That's why we have the magnetic field on one branch and we have the gravitational field on another branch, and the 2 can combine to create the electromagnetic field. The electric field on another branch. We have magnetic field on one branch, electric field on a different branch, but at the same tetration level, or the same squared level in terms of time. And so they have a synergy where they are 2 sides of the same coin. They both equal T4, but they're coming from different branches, and that's why the electromagnetic field has 2 sides of the same coin. And it also connects to why those 2 things share a 6 property group, or a double 3 property group, because you have a connection of two objects in the velocity range, where you have taken the second recursion of velocity, and that's the level of where you get the magnetic field. But on the original T1 layer, if you go up to the acceleration layer, you're again at the T4, but now you have 4 primitive units to work with, because you're on the T4 layer in the original thing. So 4 and 2 is 6. That's why you have 6 units of electromagnetism. I probably look crazy, I feel crazy. This is a lot to think about, and I'm trying my best to wrap my head around it. All of the fields and forces can be figured out and derived using this formula. We get the different fundamental forces by taking the original time primitive and then going from time squared to time to the 4th to time to the 8th. So time squared gives us light. Time squared gives us light and the magnetic field. Time to the 4th gives us gluons and the quantum field. Time to the 5th gives us curl and the Higgs boson, so Higgs field. So this equation predicts that Higgs field is a field in itself. And then the jerk primitive gives rise to what we have theorized to be a dark energy. And that would also mean a dark energy field and dark energy force. So we have 5 layers of tetration, but potentially they could go on to infinity. I might be using the word tetration wrong. I'm not a mathematician, at least not a trained one. I just trained myself over the years, and there's many principles and concepts I don't understand yet. Of math specifically. I have not yet worked out every single relationship, every single synergy, because it's potentially, it is infinite. It's an infinite latent space. However, even the most basic ones, the ones that we've already figured out of as a society, you know, a lot of them are going to engineering, chemistry, those types of equations. Those are all figured out here, but I have not yet incorporated all of them. I've incorporated enough of them that it's definitely a accurately working theory. Like we're talking about Maxwell's equations and field equations for Planck's constants and all that stuff. I've already figured out and works consistently in this theory. But I have not yet worked out all the different mechanical energy tensors, and there's so many things. Everything ends up being a force that's derived from this equation. And so therefore every branch of engineering, every branch of physics, every branch of chemistry can be deduced into these equations one step at a time. And yeah, this is it. This is what I got so far. I'm gonna publish a paper as quick as I can, and hopefully the world will take notice, or at least the physicists of the world will take notice. Because man, I've been working on it a long time, and I would hate to die without this not getting out there. Thanks.